an Airbnb for several years. It started as a side hustle to supplement my job, a chance to capitalize on our home's location in a popular vacation area. My wife and I thought it was the perfect way to earn extra money, and for a while, it was. At first, everything ran smoothly. We'd get reservations from families, couples, and even solo travelers. We handled scheduling, arranged cleaning services, and responded to inquiries promptly. It became a routine, almost monotonous. We rarely saw the guests face to face, which suited us just fine. Most of our interactions were brief texts confirming their arrival or departure. Little did I know that one booking would turn our dream into a nightmare. The scene shifts to the protagonist lounging on his couch. He checks his phone and reads a text from a supposed guest. The booking was for a single night, a young couple visiting the area. As usual, I sent them the unlock code for the door and wished them a pleasant stay. Everything seemed normal until later that night. Around 9 p.m., as I was preparing for bed, my phone buzzed. A text from the guest read, "I'll call you in a minute." Something about the message felt off, but I brushed it aside. Moments later, my phone rang. His voice was calm, polite even. He claimed the water in the house wasn't working. I apologized profusely and offered to come by to check. It was inconvenient, sure, but I prided myself on being a responsible host. The scene darkens as the protagonist pulls into the driveway. The house looks quiet, with only faint light spilling from the windows. When I arrived, I noticed 2 cars in the driveway. It struck me as odd. A young couple staying for one night doesn't usually rent 2 cars. I brushed it off, assuming they had visitors, which wasn't allowed but wasn't worth an argument. I knocked on the door, entered the code, and stepped inside. The house was eerily silent. I expected them to greet me, or at least acknowledge my presence. Instead, I found an empty living room. The protagonist heads to the basement. The faint sound of dripping water echoes in the background. I decided to check the main water valve first, hoping it was a simple issue. When I got to the basement, everything seemed normal. There was no leak or damage, just silence. Then I noticed something strange. The valve had been completely shut off, and not by accident. Someone had turned it off manually. My stomach twisted. Why would they do this? The thought gnawed at me as I adjusted the valve, restoring the water flow. Then, just as I was preparing to leave, I heard it. 3 men appeared at the bottom of the stairs. They weren't the young couple I had imagined. These men were older, rough-looking, and their presence immediately set me on edge. Man 1. "Is it fixed?" His voice matched the one from the phone call. My throat tightened as I realized this was no misunderstanding. I muttered a vague answer about the valve tightening on its own. They didn't respond. They just stood there, watching me. Their silence was unnerving. I tried to leave, weaving between them as casually as I could. That's when I noticed it, the handle of a gun tucked into the waistband of one man's pants. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I forced myself to stay calm. I quickened my pace, climbed the stairs, and walked straight out the front door. The protagonist drives home, his hands trembling on the wheel. His wife wakes as he bursts into the bedroom. I woke my wife and told her everything. Her reaction was immediate. "Call the police." We waited for what felt like an eternity before the officer called back. He said the house was empty. I gave him the door code and he checked inside. Still, no sign of anyone. The next day, things became even more unsettling. The card the man had used to book the stay was stolen. Inside the house, we found several expensive items missing. Decorations, appliances, even small electronics. They hadn't just been squatters. They were thieves, and the entire water issue had been a ploy to get me there. But what I couldn't understand was their endgame. Why had they let me leave? These men were armed. They had lured me into the basement and blocked my exit. They had the opportunity to rob me, or worse, but they didn't. The unanswered questions haunted me. Were they trying to intimidate me? Were they planning something that they abandoned last minute? Or was it dumb luck that I escaped unharmed? The scene shifts to the protagonist walking through the house one last time, locking the doors and turning off the lights. After that night, I made a vow. I'd never return to the house while guests were staying. A few months later, we stopped using Airbnb altogether and rented the property traditionally. The extra income wasn't worth the fear. Every time I think about those 3 men, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. This story isn't just about an Airbnb gone wrong. It's about the unpredictability of people and the danger of ignoring your gut. So, if you ever feel that unease creep into your bones, don't dismiss it. Be cautious, stay alert, and just be careful out there. I hope you like this story. Please let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, then subscribe to the channel because you will get to see similar videos on this channel. I'll see you again in a more scarier story.